I slammed my laptop shut so hard the kitchen table shook. My husband just stood there, coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. "Your mother texted me again," I said, my voice cutting through the morning silence. "Third time this week about the retirement home brochures." Mark set down his mug carefully, too carefully. That's when I knew he'd already made up his mind without me. After 15 years as marriage, I could read every micro-expression on his face, the slight tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw shifted left. He was about to ask me for something big. "Sarah, we need to talk about this seriously," he started. I laughed, actually laughed, because what else could I do? Our 2 kids were still asleep upstairs, both needing specialized care, both requiring every ounce of energy I had. And now this. "Your parents are 65 years old," I said slowly, enunciating each word. "They run marathons. Your mother just remodeled her kitchen, and they want us to pay $60,000 a year so they can be waited on? It's not like that. Then what's it like, Mark?" He rubbed his temples, the gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he didn't want to face reality. "They're getting older. They want security. Is that so wrong?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Through the window, I could see our neighbor loading his car, heading off to a normal job with normal problems. I'd give anything for normal problems right now. "Your parents built your brother 2 houses," I said. "Bought him a car, raised his kids, while we got nothing, not 1 dime in 15 years. And now they want our money? That's not fair." "Fair?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair, Mark." I walked to the drawer where I kept all our important documents. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the folder I'd been updating for years, the one I never thought I'd actually need to use. "Do you know how much my parents have given us?" I asked, not waiting for an answer. "Over $500,000. They paid for your business startup. They covered the kids' therapy when insurance wouldn't. They sent money for this house, for the modifications we needed." Mark's face had gone pale. "I know. Do you? Because I don't think you do." I held the folder against my chest. "And they never asked for anything back, not once, never even brought it up. But your parents, who have 2 houses and enough savings to live comfortably, want us to bankrupt ourselves so they can enjoy resort-style living?" "My mom really wants this," he said quietly. "She's been talking about it for months." "Of course she has, because she knows you'll cave. You always do." The words hung in the air between us, sharp and true. Upstairs, I heard movement. One of the kids was waking up. Our reality was about to intrude, the way it did every single morning, with its routines and needs and endless demands. "I'm not doing this," I said. "I'm not having this conversation before 7 a.m. But Mark, you need to understand something. If you commit to this without my agreement, we're going to have a serious problem." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something that made my stomach drop. Guilt. He'd already told them yes. "Mark," I said slowly, "what did you do?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Upstairs, footsteps padded across the hallway, our son Jake calling for me, life demanding I move forward, even as everything was falling apart. "I told them we'd think about it," Mark finally said. "That's not what your face is telling me." He broke eye contact, staring down at his coffee. "I might have mentioned we could probably help with the initial deposit." "How much is the deposit, Mark?" $20,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $20,000. The same amount I'd been saving for Jake's transition to the special needs adult program in 3 years. Money I'd been setting aside dollar by dollar, sacrifice by sacrifice. "You promised them our savings," I said flatly. "Not promised, just said we'd discuss it." "Without discussing it with me first." Jake called again from upstairs, more insistent now. I held up a finger to Mark, a universal sign for "this conversation isn't over," and headed up to start our morning routine. As I climbed the stairs, I felt something shift inside me. A line had been crossed. 2 hours later, after getting Jake and Emma fed, medicated, and settled with their morning activities, I found Mark in his home office. He was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. He didn't hear me approach. "Mom, I said we'd work it out," he was saying. "Just send me the paperwork for Sunset Gardens. Yeah, I know the deadline is next week. I'll handle Sarah." He'd handle me, like I was an obstacle to manage rather than his partner. I walked away before he could see me, my mind racing. In the kitchen, I opened my laptop again and started digging. If we were going to have this fight, I needed ammunition, real numbers, real facts. What I found made my blood run cold. Sunset Gardens retirement community wasn't just expensive, it was luxury level. Wine tastings, spa services, golf course access. This wasn't about security or care. This was about lifestyle upgrade. And the contract terms I found in Mark's email when he left his account open on our shared computer, they were even worse. 3-year minimum commitment, $72,000 per year after the first year, non-refundable fees. I printed everything, every email between Mark and his mother, every brochure, every contract term. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom checking in on the kids. She did this every few days, always supportive, never intrusive. I stared at her message for a long moment, thinking about everything she'd given us, everything she'd never asked for in return. Then I looked at the pile of papers documenting what Mark's parents expected us to provide. The anger that had been simmering since this morning started to boil over. I texted my mom back, keeping it light. Then I called my sister. "Lisa, I need you to do something for me," I said when she answered. "Can you look up property records for Mark's parents' house in Florida?" "Why?" "Just do it, please. I need to know what it's worth." She called back 20 minutes later. $350,000, maybe more in this market. Why? Thanked her and hung up. $350,000, more than enough to pay for their retirement home fantasy for years. But they wanted to leave it to Mark's deadbeat brother instead, the one who'd never held a job for more than 6 months, who relied on their parents for everything. Mark came into the kitchen. "I ordered lunch for the kids. Should be here soon." "We need to talk," I said. "Sarah, please, not now." "Yes, now." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit down." Something in my tone made him comply. I slid the stack of printouts across the table. "I found these in your email," I said. "Want to tell me about the 3-year contract you were planning to sign? Or the part where it's $72,000 a year after the first year? Or maybe the emails where your mother specifically says she wants to preserve the house equity for Kevin?" Mark's face went through several shades of red. "You went through my email? You left it open on our computer. And that's what you're focused on right now? Not the fact that you were about to commit us to over $200,000 without my knowledge? It's not that much when you spread it out. It's exactly that much, Mark. Do the math, Mark. 3 years minimum. That's over $200,000. Money we don't have. Money we need for our kids' future. My parents need security." "Your parents own a house worth $350,000, I shot back. "They have security. They're choosing to give it to your brother instead of using it themselves. That's not our problem." Mark stood up abruptly, his chair scraping backward. "You don't understand. You've never understood how hard it is for me to say no to my mother." "Then learn," I said coldly, "because I'm saying no for both of us. You can't make that decision unilaterally. Watch me." We stared at each other across the table. Outside, I heard the delivery driver pulling up with lunch. Normal life continuing while ours imploded. "Your parents gave us everything," Mark said, his voice rising. "Of course you don't feel obligated to mine." "My parents gave us everything because they wanted to help their daughter and grandchildren. Your parents gave everything to your brother and now want us to make up the difference. That's not the same thing." "Family is family." "Exactly," I said. "So why did your family never treat us like family until they needed our money?" The doorbell rang. Neither of us moved. "I'm getting that," Mark finally said, "and then we're going to finish this conversation." But we didn't finish it, not that day, because Emma had a meltdown that afternoon that required all our attention. Then Jake needed help with his occupational therapy exercises. By the time the kids were in bed, we were both too exhausted to fight. The next morning, Mark's mother called. I answered because Mark was in the shower. "Sarah, dear," Linda's voice dripped with false sweetness. "I wanted to thank you for agreeing to help with Sunset Gardens. Mark said you two talked it over." My grip tightened on the phone. "Linda, Mark and I haven't agreed to anything." "Oh," a pause. "Well, he sent in the deposit application yesterday. I assumed you knew." The world tilted. "He what?" "The deposit application, $20,000 for our move-in next month. You didn't know?" I hung up without responding. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the phone down. Mark had done it. He'd actually gone behind my back and submitted the application. When he came downstairs, toweling his hair dry, I was waiting. "You applied for the deposit," I said, "without telling me." He froze mid-step. "Sarah, I can explain." "Explain what? That you betrayed my trust? That you committed our money without my consent? That you chose your mother over your wife and children?" "It's not like that. The application doesn't mean we're committed. It just holds the spot while we figure things out." "We already figured it out, Mark. I said no." "And what about what I want?" His voice rose to match mine. "What about my obligation to my parents? What about your obligation to the family you actually chose, the one you promised to put first when you married me?" Emma appeared in the doorway, her hands over her ears. The arguing was overwhelming her. I immediately lowered my voice and went to comfort her, shooting Mark a look that could melt steel. Later, after the kids were calm, I locked myself in our bedroom and called my dad. "Daddy," I said, my voice cracking, "I need advice." I told him everything. The retirement home, the money, Mark's betrayal. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Honey," he finally said, "your marriage is yours to figure out. But I can tell you this. If Mark signs that contract, you need to protect yourself and those kids, legally." The words chilled me. "You think it's that serious?" "I think Mark is choosing his parents over his family. And I think you need to be prepared for what that means." After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. Protect myself legally. My father was telling me to prepare for divorce. Was it really that far gone? I thought about the last 15 years, how I'd sacrificed everything for this family, my career, my social life, my own dreams. I'd homeschooled both kids because the schools couldn't handle their needs. I'd managed every doctor's appointment, every therapy session, every meltdown. I'd kept this household running while Mark built his business. And he was willing to throw away our financial security for parents who'd never supported us. The folder was still in my nightstand drawer, the one with all the documentation of my parents' contributions. I pulled it out and added the new printouts from Mark's emails. Then I drove to a lawyer's office. "I'm not ready to file for divorce," I told the attorney, "but I need to know my options." She listened to my story, taking notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Florida is an equitable distribution state," she said, "but given your parents' contributions to the business, we could argue those were gifts to you, not marital assets. If it came to divorce, you'd have a strong case for a larger share." "I don't want a larger share. I just want him to stop this insanity." "Then you need leverage," she said, "something that makes him realize what he stands to lose." I left her office with a retainer agreement in my bag and a plan forming in my mind. That evening, I asked Mark to sit down with me after the kids were asleep. "I went to see a lawyer today," I said without preamble. His face went white. "Sarah, no. I'm not filing anything, yet, but I needed to understand my legal position. And Mark, you need to understand something. If you sign that contract with Sunset Gardens, I will divorce you." "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." I pulled out the folder and opened it on the coffee table between us. "Look at these numbers. Really look at them." My parents gave us $512,000 over 15 years. That money built your business. It paid for this house. It keeps our kids in therapy. I know that. Do you? Because you're about to piss away everything we've built for parents who never gave us anything. Your mom could sell her house tomorrow and live in luxury for the rest of her life. But she won't, because she wants to give it to Kevin. The same Kevin who's never worked a full year in his life. The same Kevin whose kids your parents raised while ours got nothing. Mark's hands were shaking. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell your parents no. I want you to withdraw that deposit application. And I want you to choose us, Mark. Choose your actual family. They're my family too. Then they can act like it. They can sell their house and fund their own retirement, like adults. We sat in silence for several minutes. I could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Guilt, obligation, fear, love. Everything tangled together into an impossible knot. I need to think, he finally said. You have until Friday, I told him. That's when the deposit is due. If you send that money, I'm taking the kids to my parents' house and filing for separation. I walked upstairs, leaving him alone with his thoughts and his choices. The next 3 days were torture. We moved around each other like ghosts, speaking only about logistics and the kids. On Thursday evening, Mark's mother called again. This time, I put her on speaker. Mark, sweetheart, she said, the deadline is tomorrow. Did you submit the deposit? Mark looked at me across the kitchen. I kept my expression neutral, giving him nothing. Mom, he said slowly, I need to talk to you about that. Is there a problem? Because if it's a money issue, we could maybe take a little less from the house equity. Maybe leave Kevin $200,000 instead of the full amount. There it was. Confirmation that this was always about protecting Kevin's inheritance. Mom, why can't you use the house equity to pay for Sunset Gardens yourselves? Mark asked. Silence on the other end. Then, well, we promised Kevin. He's counting on that money. He's 42 years old, Mom. Why is he counting on inheritance money? That's not fair, Mark. You know Kevin has had a hard time. And we haven't? Sarah and I are raising 2 special needs kids. We're drowning in medical expenses and therapy costs. Our kids might need support their entire lives. But you're doing so well, Linda protested. Your business is thriving. Because Sarah's parents bankrolled it, Mark said, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. Not you, not Dad, her parents, and they never asked for anything in return. But you're asking us to give up our kids' future so you can have spa days and wine tastings. Mark Anthony, that is completely unfair. Is it? Because Sarah pulled up the contract, Mom. $72,000 a year for luxury living while you sit on $350,000 in home equity. How is that fair to us? I felt something shift inside me. Hope, maybe, or relief that he was finally seeing clearly. If you loved us, you'd help, Linda said, her voice turning cold. If you loved us, you wouldn't ask, Mark replied. I'm withdrawing the deposit application. You and Dad need to either use your own assets or find something you can actually afford. Your brother is going to be very disappointed. Then maybe Kevin needs to grow up and stop counting on handouts. I'm done, Mom. This conversation is over. He hung up. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then Mark turned to me. I'm sorry, he said. You were right. About all of it. I let guilt blind me to what I was really doing. I was choosing the family that never chose me over the family that's been there all along. I felt tears building behind my eyes. You really withdrew the application? I'm doing it right now. He pulled out his phone and started typing. And Sarah, I'm sorry for betraying your trust. I'll do whatever it takes to earn it back. It's going to take time, I said honestly. You really hurt me, Mark. I know, and I'll spend however long it takes making it right. His phone buzzed. Then again, and again. His mother, flooding him with texts. She's losing it, he said, scrolling through messages, calling me ungrateful, saying I've turned my back on family. Let me see. I took his phone and read through Linda's messages. They got progressively nastier, ending with a,
threat to cut us out
of their will entirely. Joke's on her, I said. We were never in it to begin with. Mark laughed, a sound of pure relief. God, I've been such an idiot. Yeah, I agreed, but you figured it out before it was too late. That counts for something. Over the next few days, Mark's parents ramped up their campaign. His father called, trying to guilt-trip him about family duty. Kevin sent angry texts accusing Mark of ruining his life. Linda posted vaguely on social media about ungrateful children. We ignored all of it. Instead, Mark drafted a letter explaining our position clearly and calmly. He acknowledged their disappointment, but stood firm on our decision. He offered to help them research retirement options within their actual budget. And he set a boundary. If they continued to harass us or badmouth us to family, we'd go no contact for 6 months. Linda responded with a 2-page email about what a disappointment Mark was. So we went no contact. 3 weeks later, we heard through the family grapevine that Mark's parents had decided to stay in their house after all. Turns out, when they realized we wouldn't bankroll their fantasy, the appeal of retirement living diminished considerably. Kevin, predictably, was furious that his inheritance timeline had been delayed. They're going to live out of spite now, Mark joked one night, just to torture Kevin with delayed gratification. Good, I said. Let them enjoy the house they refuse to sell, and let Kevin learn that the world doesn't owe him anything. My parents came to visit that month. They played with the kids, helped with therapy exercises, and never once mentioned the drama with Mark's family. At dinner one night, my dad pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, he said, for standing your ground, for protecting your family. I almost lost everything, I admitted. If Mark had signed that contract, we'd be separated right now. But he didn't. He chose you. That's what matters. As I watched my parents with my kids, I thought about what family really means. It's not about obligation or guilt or what you're owed. It's about showing up, supporting each other, giving without keeping score. My parents had given us everything and never asked for anything back. That's family. Mark's parents had given us nothing and demanded everything. That's something else entirely. Later that night, after everyone was asleep, Mark found me on the back porch. I talked to my mom today, said. She called to tell me they're fine. They never really wanted to leave their house anyway. No apology for the drama. No acknowledgement of what they put us through. Just a complete rewrite of history. Are you okay with that? I have to be, he said, because I'm done chasing their approval. I'm done feeling guilty for building a life they never supported. I'm just done. He put his arm around me, and we sat in comfortable silence. Our life wasn't perfect. Jake and Emma would always need extra support. Money would always be tight juggling their care. But we had each other. We had my parents' unconditional love, and we had the security of knowing we'd fought for our family and won. Sometimes the hardest thing to say is no, especially to family, especially when guilt has been weaponized against you your whole life. But saying no to his parents meant saying yes to us, to our kids, to our future. And that was worth every uncomfortable conversation, every nasty text, every guilt trip they tried to lay at our door. We chose us, finally and completely, and that made all the difference. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have handled the in-laws differently? Or do you think setting that hard boundary was the only way to protect this family's future?